Welcome everyone to week 1 of our sweater weather knit along, and this is the perfect day for it in Muskoka. It is quite cool and very damp and wet outside. So today we have Super Sandy with us. She will be monitoring the comments and helping us with the trivia quiz at the end of this live video. So a shout out to Super Sandy for helping us. Feel free to post your comments, send a wave, say hello, let us know where you're watching us from, and if you have already jumped the gun and cast on for one of the sweater projects. So I will just do a quick recap for anybody who is new joining us today. There is still time to sign up for the knit along. Maybe after today you'll feel inspired and want to try one of these beautiful sweaters that are surrounding me. So what we did is try to pick an option for every level of knitting experience and to leave room for you to learn. Hi Anne, thanks for joining. So try to leave room for you to learn a few new techniques. So we started with PJ pullover. That's the basic sweater behind me. And that is knit with a strand of fluff and a strand of a chunky weight together. And then we went with an intermediate sweater, which is Keeper of the Woods. That's a nice Guernsey style sweater. All these sweaters are knit with positive ease, and they're very slouchy and relaxed fitting. So the third one, we then split as the advanced option. You have a choice between, hi Evelyn, you have a choice between the Italian lace pullover in a chunky wool, which is the natural llama and merino wool, undyed. So it has just the cream and the beige and the gray shades. And then the very last one is what I'm wearing. This is ranunculus. Ranunculus, which is a top-down seamless knit. It can be knit with long sleeves, or my version has the short sleeves. So that is the recap of what we have chosen for the sweater weather knit along. So now I think, hi Judy, hi Lorna, hi Brenda. I think what we'll do is talk about positive ease. So all of these sweaters featured have a great deal of positive ease. So for you to pick your preferred size in the width, you have to take into account that there is quite a bit of excess. So on PJ pullover, which is behind me, we have 6 to 10 inches of positive ease. So this is featured in the small size. Now, to find out what size is most comfortable for your body shape and size, you can either measure a favorite sweater or sweatshirt, something that you feel very comfortable wearing. Measure around, let me see. You want to measure around your underarm at the widest part of your chest comfortably. So that will give you what we call the positive ease base measurement. So from there you can look at the different sizes on the PJ pullover to see what the width across the underarms would come out to. This one comes out to 42 inches as the small. So for a person my size, who generally wears a small, I would be having then 8 inches of positive ease. That's to give it a nice, comfortable, relaxed look, and you can also layer and wear a turtleneck underneath, a long sleeve t-shirt like I'm wearing today, or a blouse or a shirt with a collar. Hi Sandra. Thanks for joining us everyone. We've had a really good response to this knit along. I think the timing was right just after Thanksgiving and also the weather changing, and now we're going to be indoor a little bit more. So yes, so there will be some tips and tutorials on how to change the sweater to make it your own, to make it very unique to the style that you like. So for instance, on PJ Pullover, over the next 4 weeks, we'll go over how you can change the sleeve. If you don't like this modern, trendy bell sleeve, which is quite full at the cuff, we'll be going over how you can stagger the increases to give it a more streamlined sleeve shape. You can also add length to the body, but again, you have to take into account, did you buy extra yarn for that? And if you like, you can lengthen the ribbing, just to give it a more fitted feel at the bottom, and how you can change and add more height to the neckline. So that will be going over the coming 4 weeks. PJ Pullover is knit on an 8mm straight needle or circular. Hi Kitty! I think you're somewhere in the States today where it's much warmer than it is here. And then the next one, which is knit on 4 and 4.5mm, you can change the length, you can shorten the length or add to it. That has to be done before you start the pattern work. So you've got lots and lots of straight stocking stitch, and that's where you can add or take away inches. So we'll be giving you tips on that. You can also change the length of your sleeves. Next week I'll talk more about determining the perfect sleeve length. I don't want to overwhelm everyone in the beginning because today is just cast on day. It should be very relaxed. Yes, and again, we can change the height of the neckline, the shaping, and also adding to the ribbing there. This one too, we can also lower the neckline. We can make it a crew neck, we can make it a turtleneck. There's lots of options there. The sleeves are easy to shorten, and the body length can be added to. Ranunculus, again, you can do the long sleeve version. You can do the bell sleeve, which is shown on the pattern. You can do a rib sleeve cuff, which is more traditional, like these. And you can add length to the body or keep it cropped, which is the original design. But it is important that you do your tension swatch. Unless you are a real seasoned knitter and you know your tension, if you're a loose or tight knitter or somewhere in between. There are no tension police out there that will come after you, but it does make a difference in the finished project. Okay, so yes, we do prefer the long tail cast on for all of these projects. Hi Debbie. Long tail cast on gives you a nice finished edge. It's not loose, it's not too tight, and it always has a nice slanted edge as your right side of work. So I will post in our event section a link to our video tutorial which shows you the long tail cast on. Some of you may do the knitted cast on, the cable cast on, which is a bit tight, but the long tail cast on is universally the best one. It's worth learning even if you practice it with some scrap yarn before you do it on your actual sweater. It's really personal preference if you want to do these garments on straight or circular needles. Because it is seamed, you have that option. I personally prefer to knit my straight seam sweaters on straight needles. I find that I knit more even, my stitches don't get too loose, and I'm not constantly pushing the stitches from the cord to the needle tip. If you've chosen ranunculus as your project, you have no choice. You have to do circular. So let me just go over the notes for each of the projects so you can get started with your casting on, the changes that we're making. PJ Pullover, we're just following it exactly as is. Once you determine your size, we'll be offering changes to the neckline later on and offering changes to the sleeve shaping at the cuff, which creates that nice volume type sleeve. So your you're fine to cast on, long tail cast on, and follow the pattern as written, and everything will work out fine. But don't go into the sleeves until we catch up with you, and don't shape the front neck until we catch up with you. So those are all the notes about PJ pullover. It's a very relaxing, lightweight project. I'm sure you're going to enjoy working with the yarn that you've chosen. And then the next one, Keeper of the Woods. So again, we're just going to work with the pattern as it's written, except for determining the length of the body. That's something you're going to have to measure out. Again, if you can have somebody hold a tape measure from the center of your shoulder down to the length that you would like, or if you don't have somebody available to help you, maybe measure your favorite sweater, sweatshirt, fleece jacket, something that will give you the comfortable length that you really prefer. So that is the only change you have to worry about for the back of the sweater, which is how we start. We start with the back of the sweater. And if, for instance, you're doing the small, same as this one, the finished length is 24.5. For most people, that will sit just past the center of your hip bone. That's a comfortable walking length, we call it. If you're a little bit shorter and you would prefer to have maybe 23.5 inches or 22.5 inches from the shoulder to the cast on rib, then you have to remember you have to deduct the 1 or 2 inches in the stocking stitch. We don't want to change anything in here because this is all structured and designed for the sleeve to fit in. Plus there are pine trees, and we don't want to chop off the top of the pine tree on the back or the front. So that is the only change you have to take into consideration on Keeper of the Woods, is that length. Later on we'll be talking about how to change the neck here and sleeve length. So that again is a nice relaxed project to work on. You'll be able to listen to your favorite podcast or watch your Netflix show for that simple knitting. And once you get into the charted work, you'll have to concentrate. So enjoy the simplicity while it lasts. And on to our third one. Hi Jane, thanks for tuning in today. Now the third one, there's quite a few changes at the beginning, so I really hope, and I've crossed my fingers, that nobody has started and cast on already. This is a European pattern translated into English, which is not a bad thing, but sometimes there are elements of the pattern that don't make sense to us here in North America. So this particular one has 6 to 12 inches of positive ease, and it only has 2 different sizes in the pattern, small medium, which is shown, and small medium comes out to 48 inches around the chest. Large to extra large is finished at 57 inches. So that's a huge size difference in between. And the reason for the huge size difference is the pattern repeats. So you can see there is a leaf pattern, and there have to be so many stitches to complete each repeat. And in order for you to complete the repeat, that I would say each leaf is about 2 inches wide. So that's why there's a great size difference. I think we have a question, Super Sandy.
Yes, Brenda would like to ask for Keeper of the Woods. Did you use smaller needles for the rib as per the pattern, or use the same needle as the body?
Keeper of the Woods has a smaller needle used, 4 millimeter, and the body is 4.5. That just gives a little bit of a turned in ribbed hem, not a straight boxy shape. If you prefer a straight boxy shape, you could do the ribbing on the same size as the body. And okay, so the Italian lace pattern right away when you cast on the required number of stitches, change number 1. We knit 1 row. That will create a nice little edge at the bottom, and then we start into the pattern, which is worked from the chart. We start in with right side as row 1, and we work from the chart from right to left. So that will give you 5 pattern repeats for small to medium, and for large it'll give you 6. So that is an important change in the pattern. I will be putting that in a little tip post after the video airs. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to load up some questions and comments with Sandy, and I'm going to be right back. Hi, Lauren. Do we have any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So yes, there is an important section to take into consideration. Hi, Deborah. On the Italian lace pattern. Knitting 1 row gives you a more stable edge. If you look at your actual pattern, you'll see that it's a very wavy, loose edge. So we are adding in the 1 row knit, and that creates a nice ridge. Because you're knitting 1 row on the wrong side, you're creating the purl stitch on the right side. Another question, okay, shoot.
Deborah would like to know if you can make the sleeves on the Keeper of the Woods less full.
Yes, you can. We don't want to play around with the top of the sleeve too much in terms of width. If you can see, the sleeve placement follows the line of the body. So where the pattern starts on the body, that's where the sleeve is sewn in and ends. But what we can do is stagger the increasing from the top of the cuff and make it a little bit less full here. Let's see if I can show that. So would that help if you had a little bit narrower start to the sleeve, or do you want it to be less full at the top? We'll wait for your answer on that.
We have a number of questions. Lorna would like to know on 3, do you work the pattern first row left to right?
Okay, yes, I was just about to get to that one, Lorna. So I'm going to look at my chart here. This is for option number 3, Italian lace sweater. Because we've knit the first row, we consider the first row as the wrong side. You're going to start right away with the bottom row of the chart and knit from right to left. And you'll also notice too on this particular chart and this sweater that they include an edge stitch. An edge stitch is a very European trait in knitting patterns, and that is simply knitting the first and the last stitch on every row. So it's easier to sew it up, and it creates an edge that doesn't curl. And okay, so I have to stay focused for a minute. So because you've knit one row on the wrong side, your actual row 1 is the right side row, and it is the first row of the chart. And then we're doing row 2, which we read from left to right. Left to right, and it is the second row. Then you'll start to see the number 3 is on the right hand side. That means it's a right side row. Number 4 is on the left hand side. That means you're reading it left to right as a wrong side row. So for those of you who are not too familiar with reading European charts, you might want to take your pen or pencil and put a 1 on the first row on the right hand side and put RS beside it. To remind you, that's right side row, and then number 2, 4, 6, and so on, you can put WS, wrong side. That will help to keep you straight. I realize it's going to be a bit confusing for you because in the instructions it's asking you to push stitches to the opposite end of the needle and continue with a new strand of yarn. We're ignoring all that. That means you'd be cutting and starting in the first 2 rows as if it's a new ball. We don't want to do that. We want it to be streamlined, easy, and have a very nice edge. So I'll try to put a bit more a written post on that particular change or tip so it makes more sense. Sometimes when I'm talking, I don't make perfect sense. Yeah, so basically anytime you're reading a chart, your right side row, you read right to left, and your wrong side row, you read left to right. Wrong side rows mean you're working the stitches as they appear to you on the wrong side of the row. The symbols in the chart are also mentioning that. Do we have more questions?
We have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Wendy would like to know for sweater 3, row 2, push stitches to end of opposite end of needle and continue with new strand of yarn. She doesn't understand.
Okay, so we're eliminating that. So as I just explained, we are not pushing the stitches to the opposite end of the needle. That is a European technique that we don't need to do. We're knitting one row, and then we're starting row 1 as normal. At the very bottom row on the chart, put a number 1 there, and read it from right to left, not left to right. Because then when you get to the end of the row and turn, you'll be ready for a wrong side row, and it'll be row 2. I hope that helps, but I will post more about that little change. And question number
Next question.
2.
Anne is planning on doing the large size at 54 inches around,
Mm-hmm.
and the sweater will hang on her, but the sweater will hang on me and will not sit snug. Any suggestions?
So this one, you're going to knit the larger size.
She didn't say
Oh,
which.
number 2.
Um,
Number 2?
Anne has not said which size. I mean, which sweater she's doing.
Okay. I think she might be doing number 2, which has a 54-inch finished size. This one does not have a 54-inch finished size, so I think I'm going to go with my gut, which says she's planning to do the large, and it would be finished at 54 inches. I think that would be okay for you, or the
Yes.
medium.
Number 2 for him.
Yes. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe you might fit better at a 48-inch, only because, again, these are oversized sweaters, which is the look this year. We're going back to 1980s, not a bad thing. But the medium in the pattern is more like a standard ladies large. So if you look at the medium chest measurement, it comes out at 48. That's a standard large. So if you were to do the large pattern as written, it's really an extra large. So I think maybe you might have to measure one of your sweaters that you really like the fit of and decide if medium is not the better choice.
And Elizabeth
Mm-hmm.
is doing keeper,
Mm-hmm.
and so she says we don't change stitch numbers, etc., till we get up to the tree other than the length. She just wants to confirm.
Right. Yes, Elizabeth, you will not be changing the stitch number anywhere in the body. The pattern is structured so that the ribbing pulls in ever so slightly, and that is only due to the smaller needle size. I know some patterns have a row of increasing after the ribbing, but for this particular pattern that would have made it very blousy, and that's not the design aesthetic I was going for. So yes, do not add stitches or take away stitches, just inches or centimeters in the length, and I think for you, you'll probably want it a little bit shorter. Any other questions?
No, we are up to date on questions.
Okay, so I'm going to move on now to sweater option 3B, which is ranunculus. So we've had a few people who've signed up to knit this one. It's been knit many, many times over and over in different types of yarn. And it is a one-size-fits-all. So the one-size-fits-all, which you can see really stretches out, but it also hangs in a way that it doesn't look too wide when you're wearing it. So the width of this particular pattern is 50 inches and 3/4. So that may seem wide to you, but because your yarn is not a heavyweight yarn like this, more this weight or a DK or fingering, it is not going to appear bulky and huge on you. So the pattern calls for a 6mm circular to knit the whole body, not including the sleeve cuff. You can downsize your needle to a 5.5 or a 5mm if you want the sweater to come in. So if you don't feel comfortable wearing 50 3/4 inches and you want it to be maybe 48 inches, then I would go to a 5.5mm for the entire sweater body. If you want it to come in to about 46 inches, then go down to a 5mm. Okay, I've knit 5 or 6 of these sweaters, and each time I play around with the needle size according to the thickness of the yarn that I've chosen, and that creates a smaller width. We had one of our knit-alongers in today, and she bought this yarn, which is a worsted weight, the Lama Natural, and I think she bought it in the light beige or the brownie color. So she's using that for her ranunculus. And she could quite easily go to a 5.5mm instead of a 6. And that would work out fine. It would just draw in the sweater ever so slightly and maybe make it more comfortable for her. So that's one change you can do on ranunculus. The other note is they give 2 different cast-on methods. One is for the wider neckline and one is for the smaller neckline. We really haven't had anybody who chooses the smaller neckline. The wider neckline is not extremely wide. It is a regular crew neck like I'm wearing, but the smaller neckline would sit tight, very, very tight around your neckline. So I'm suggesting that everybody follow the wider neckline, which is casting on 60 stitches. The method that is shown is called the double twist loop. We prefer, again, because this one is knit top down, we prefer the long tail cast on. I think if you want to Google the double twist loop method, you'll agree. This is much more effective. It has some stretch, but it also holds and it's not open and holy looking. So please make a note on your pattern. You're casting on for the wider neckline, which is 60 stitches, and you're using the long tail method. So that's the only change for knit-alongers if you've chosen this project. You will have to do some short row sections at the very beginning after the initial neckline is finished, and I will post the link so you can see the tutorial, the video tutorial, to show you how to do that. And then you'll be starting with your 24-inch circular, but very soon after you finish the short rows, you'll have to switch to your longer circular because you're accumulating more stitches in the increase section. And then you'll be going through different slip stitch techniques, a little bit of lace, and more slip stitch techniques to give it the texture. They are well explained in here, but again, if you have any questions about how to do the stitches, you can post them on our events page after the video, or if you're already there, you can ask the questions now. Do we have any more questions, Super Sandy?
We do not have any more questions.
Okay, well that's a good sign. That means everybody is ready to cast on and feels confident in their chosen project. So for everyone who signed up for the knit along, your name has been entered as a ballot in our draw box for the Sweater Weather knit along. We will be doing a live draw on the 5th week. So this is week 1, so we have 4 weeks of knitting, and then the 5th week is the live draw. So we've got some ballots in there with some names on them. Each week though, when you check in here on Friday at 3 p.m., at the end of the video we'll be doing a trivia quiz, and the winner of the trivia quiz each week will get an extra incentive ballot, which also goes in our draw bucket. So today, since 2 of our sweaters, these 2 are featuring yarns that are made out of llama fiber, that is going to be the topic of our trivia. So we'll learn a little bit more about llama. A llama is larger than an alpaca animal, and the way that I've always been taught to tell a llama and an alpaca apart is the llama has larger ears, and they are sort of banana shaped. They curve in a little bit. So if you see a field full of odd looking animals, you're not sure if they're llamas or alpaca, then just look at the ears. That will tell you. Llama fiber is spun into wool, and the fiber is collected from the undercoat of the animal. So there's what they call guard hairs that are a little bit prickly and itchy, and it's the actual fiber that comes from close to the skin or the belly of the animal that creates that very soft, non-allergenic wool that we love. So each llama can produce 2 to 3 pounds of combed fiber per year, and a llama is normally sheared 2 times per year. So their fleece does grow back very quickly, which is what they need for winter. So this is our trivia question. The first person to correctly answer will have their name entered as an incentive ballot in the draw. So everyone's standing by. What do we call a baby llama? There's a very specific word, and Super Sandy is monitoring to see who comes up with it first. And if any of you have gone to a llama farm, we're still waiting for the answer. It's a very specific word that only applies to young llamas or babies until they become adults.
Anne, that's the answer.
Anne has the answer.
Anne.
Is this Anne in Ottawa area?
Anne Mokris.
Yay, Anne. Good for you. Okay, so you're going to have an incentive ballot in your name in our draw bucket, which goes along with your entry ballot. So now you have 2 times chance of winning. I will be showing our grand prize next week live on the video, so I hope you can join us then. And hi Barb, thanks for watching. And I hope that everybody enjoys their cast on day. It's always an exciting day when you have a new project. And I hope you love working with your yarns. I mean, these two are absolutely gorgeous yarns to knit with. The worsted weight and the chunky. And then this one here having that extra plush combination of the kid mohair and silk. Oh, it is a dream. And thanks Super Sandy for monitoring. She'll be here every Friday to help out. That way I don't have to look down at the comments and try to stay focused on what I'm trying to relay to you. Enjoy your weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next Friday.